Welcome to the Hay Kings podcast, brought to you by Crone, dedicated to hay and forage producers. On today's episode, I'm joined by Dan Ostrander, and he's the owner of B&D Rollers. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, John. Really appreciate the invite.
Tell me about your connection to agriculture.
I married into a farm family about 34 years ago or so. Married a girl across our lake. We live in a small Midwestern town in Minnesota called Glenwood. Yeah, they have a century-old family farm on the south side of the lake. Her brother, Mike, is I believe, the third generation owner of that. Meeting Barb and going out there to ask for her hand to her father on the farm, I just thought, wow, this is what I'm getting into. Cows and big tractors and stuff and lots of noise, but beautiful horses running around, and your typical family cattle farm is pretty cool. And really how it kind of started with into the hay conditioning roller thing was after marrying Barb and going out to the farm a few times and sitting down with her brother and having a beer. I'm looking around, I'm going, yeah, look at that machine over there. It looks like it cuts hair. So I said, but are there rollers in that thing? Because me being a rubber roller guy at the time, I thought, well, maybe that's something we could do. So we go over there and look at it and had a chevron groove on it. And I thought, wow, I wonder if that's something we could actually do. So yeah, long story short, that's kind of how it all started. Looked at that, I thought, maybe we could do that.
So take me through how you started as a rubber roller guy, because there's lots of industries that use rubber rollers.
Yeah, there are. And people don't realize how the world actually revolves around rollers, whether it's conveyor packaging, printing, boxboard, glass, textile, woodworking, agriculture. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And basically, we do a lot for most of those industries. So it's just not agriculture, but agriculture and the crusher hay rollers are definitely our major product now. But in 1987, started the business here in Glenwood. I had helped two businesses get started in Arizona in the early 80s. And it revolved around printing rollers. So I thought, after kind of the disgruntled employee thing, you go to two different businesses and they kind of treat you not fairly as you see it in your eyes. And you thought, you know what, I could probably do this on my own. So that's what I did. I went up and asked mom and dad for a little loan and got started in 1987. So it's been a long road. I'm coming on 37 years. So three different moves and different buildings and such. At that time, that's when all the technology was coming. I thought, God dang, you could kind of see the writing on the wall. Some of the printing companies were going out of business or merging. It just wasn't enough business out there for everybody, I thought. Since the electronic age was coming and all the digital stuff, I thought, gosh, we better find something else. So kind of just started poking around and we started looking at the industrial side of it. So there was like woodworking and there's a lot of rollers in woodworking, cabinetry and plywood, all sorts of different stuff like that. So started looking into that and we bought a $250,000 piece of equipment. We thought, wow, this is a big stretch. Hopefully we can pay for this thing. And sure enough, it worked out great because we were the only one in Minnesota that had actually a groover grinder. So we could profile grooves into rubber and a cylindrical roller. And so that's really the ticket right there. There's quite a few in the United States that do that, but in our area, there wasn't really anybody that could do that. Wisconsin, Chicago was our biggest competitors, but we were so small and they were so large, we really didn't compete much at that time. So then this hay roller thing came along, and kind of how that started was because we had the machinery to do it. I've always thought with the business, if you can have everything under one roof, or at least most of it, and not really rely on the manufacturing process from vendors, the better off you're going to be. If you can have everything all under one roof, it's going to definitely be a feather in your cap. So as far as the design and everything, this lobed roller, I saw a picture of that basically on a cover of a DVD disc, and I went, huh, well, that's interesting. And I thought, that looks like a really good idea. So I researched it out, and of course it was patented, and called my patent attorney, and I researched the patent for about a week, and I talked to my lawyer, and I said, John, if I don't do this, this, and this, am I good to go? And he goes, huh. Yeah, you are. Well, that's pretty cool. So it was pretty neat. So that's kind of how it all started. You know, a lot of people have just asked me, well, why didn't you patent your roller? And I said, well, just for the same reason. Basically, there's a couple things with patents. You have to protect yourself, and you have to have the money to protect yourself, because there's people going to be coming after you. And to start off, you know, you're talking about a $50,000 bill or so, you know, if you want to do this thing right. And way back in the early 2000s, we just weren't in that position. So we thought, gosh, you know, we just need to be first to market, make a good product, and get it out there so we can, and then hopefully sometime, you know, in the future, we can hook up with some OEM down the road. So yeah, we started that crusher thing in, like, gosh, 2005, 2006. Yeah, it's been a long road on that too.
I don't know how much into the technical side of rubber we can get. Surely there's been a starting point and some evolution in the rubber technology. There's things about balancing these rollers. Take me through some of those technical components.
When I started researching the hay conditioner roller as it sat with the OEMs out there back in the 2000s, it hadn't changed much at all. The Chevron groove that was basically the first groove that was out there, the rubber component, which is made by Goodyear. Basically, it's like kind of like a high-speed racing car tire compound, but just a little bit harder. We in the rubber industry, it's called durometer. So hardness, to give you an idea, from 1 to 100 in a Shore Ace scale, there's different scales, but 50 is middle of the road, and 100 is bowling ball hard. So it kind of gives you, and we're at like a 70, and that's no proprietary thing or anything like that. As far as the rubber compound goes, it's really, when rubber is cured, it's really hard to dissect it and reverse the engineering on it. You can do it if it's a raw product. And of course, we didn't have that, but we knew the concept behind it. And I'd gotten a hold of some prints from, gosh, I don't even know who the heck it was, and saw some numbers and ASTM specs and stuff like that. And we're really familiar with that kind of stuff. So kind of did some research on that. And what we did is formulated a proprietary compound specifically for us. It's a better compound because when these rollers are running through dirt, rocks, animals,
Yep.
barbed wire, irrigation pipe, hubcaps,
Tires.
you know the drill, don't you?
I'm just thinking,
So,
yep. My favorite is
yeah.
the tire with the wheel still mounted. Yep.
Yeah, it's just crazy. So we have a proprietary compound. It's worked out very well. And what we wanted how to perform was, you know, when you're going through the field like that at a very high rate of speed or whatever, and these rollers are just cruising between 800 and 1100 or 1200 RPMs tied together, they got to withstand some stuff. So the tear in it, the compression set, there's like a puncture, you know, there's a lot of buzzwords in there that you can use, but you really want this rubber to be resilient. And with that, not rip apart if something contacts it and cuts it. You want it to stay together. And it's basically like a rubber tire. I mean, it's the same type of compound. It's an SBR compound is the base material to it. And you can add stuff. It's like baking a cake. You know, you can add this, that, or the other thing. So we just found some fillers in there that would help withstand a lot of that, more abrasion resistance, because, you know, as you know, too, up in your area, you got volcanic soil and ash and stuff. And it's very abrasive. In the Midwest Plains, you've got sand and gravel. That's extremely abrasive. Even the plants, you know, too, as you know, as a farmer, there's abrasive plants with the leaves, and it's like sandpaper, you know, and you have some of these grasses and such on those leaves, you know, you feel them and go, wow, that's aggressive.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and
Hmm.
we formulated around what could happen in the field and what we really want to get out of the performance of it. The really cool thing about this, and it's the weirdest thing ever, but our rubber is repairable. And again, this is no secret for us either, but with our compound, you can take JB Weld steel, and if there's a cut in there, you just clean it out, take a screwdriver, open it up, blow it out, make sure it's dry, mix epoxy 50-50, put it in there, take a piece of duct tape, throw it over the top, smooth it out, let it sit overnight. It seals that baby up, tighter than Fort Knox, because you don't want it, as we all know, and if there's water or moisture, it's gonna find a way to seep into whatever. So we want to stop that, because what happens is if you don't repair that, it's in it. And if the rubber did, in fact, cut down to the core, those juices of the forage will definitely find a way down there. And what happens is it turns acidic and basically turns to rust. And what it will do is loosen the bond of the rubber and the steel. And that's really kind of one of the faults of a lot of the rollers out there, besides ours, is there's a very thin wall of rubber at the bottom of the groove, like in a Chevron or a lot of different types of rubber rolls out there. And so there's not a lot of protection for that, where we've got a thick mat of rubber in there, and it's hard to cut all the way down to the core. It can happen, though, and it does. But, yeah, so it's a really neat thing on that rubber side.
I like that repairability, and it's something that the farmer can do. That's kind of one of my themes on this podcast is I'm a favor of farmers fixing their own stuff.
Yeah. Well, it saves money, and if you have the tools to do it, it keeps you in touch with your machine, and it's just an all around better thing for everything. So
let's take a break there, and we'll get a word from our sponsor.
What's up, Hey Kings? You have a lot of choices when it comes to sourcing your equipment parts, but have you tried Messick's? We have $20 million in equipment parts on our shelves, and we pick up from C&H Parts Depots daily. All this inventory is available with same-day shipping with no upcharges or expediting fees. Messick's.com has exclusive features like transparent pricing, photos of parts, fit verification, alternative part options, and an obsolete part search tool alongside the manufacturer's drawings so you're not guessing at what you need. We cover all the top brands, including New Holland, Case IH, Kubota, Krone, and Peckway, and more, all from our website. Our online tools are backed by 60-plus parts professionals who are just a call away, ready to find even the most obscure parts. So whether you're a seasoned farmer or a weekend enthusiast, think Messick's for a convenient and professional part shopping experience. Visit us at Messick's.com or call our parts hotline at 877-260-3528.
Messick's, a helping hand with your land.
Now, you mentioned these conditioner rollers are spinning 800 or 1,000 RPM.
Yeah.
There's a balancing process, right?
Yes, correct. What we do is that's the last step of the process. Put it up basically between bearings, and if there are balancing machines out there for rollers, whether it's steel or rubber or ceramic or whatever, and you balance it dynamically. And there's static balance too, but ours are dynamically balanced to actually 1,500 RPM. So we take it above and beyond what they actually perform at. What we'll do is if we find some unbalance, we'll take a weight and weld it on the side of the roller, on the cookie end or the header end, whatever you want to call that, and just it balances it out. So you could spin that thing and it'll just keep spinning and spinning and spinning. So, because you can imagine if you've got a roller that's not balanced or not properly balanced, you put that thing in the machine and it's gonna break something, a bearing, it's gonna shake you right out of the seat. And
yeah.
Bad things can happen. So, and especially, when it's tight together, that's really the caveat there. Basically, all factory rolls are designed and you're told to gap. And that's the beauty of ours, is there is no gap whatsoever. So you set those babies tight together, and then from there you tighten your existing tension system.
Mm-hmm.
And away you go. But yeah, the balancing is a huge key. Some people don't balance their rollers, and bad things happen. They break in half, and it's not good. So
No, that sounds like a terrible idea, terrible
Yeah,
outcome.
there's stuff starts flying here and there and just not good.
Well, we're not talking about light rollers either. These are fairly hefty.
Yeah, they are. They're going to be in that 300, 285, depending on what machine and
Yep, the length. Yep.
the size of roller. Yep. Again, most farmers have the equipment. You either got a cherry picker or you got your skid loader with forks, or a lot of that happens. So it's definitely a doable deal. The construction of it too, we make a real heavier, we use a 1/4-inch wall DOM tube, which we haven't found anybody else in the factories that do that.
That's the core that you're talking about.
Correct. Yep, that's the steel core. When you make a chevron or any rubber roller out there, really, they make the steel core, they pre-balance the roller, and then they put the rubber on, and it's a molded product. Well, what sense does that make? Because nothing's going to be perfect coming out of that mold. So we do it. It's the opposite. We actually pre-balance from our manufacturer of our cores. They're pre-balanced, not with weight, but just showing different stuff. And you got to start with a good product to end up with a better product, basically. And so what we do is we'll get the core in and put the rubber on it and vulcanize it. Then we'll cylindrically groove it within 0.003 or less to the bearing surface, which is big. I mean, that's a huge, important part to the whole thing too. And then we put it up on the balancer, balance the unbalance out if there is any. And typically there is. That's how you get a perfect roller, because again, like I said, you got two rollers running at, 8 to 1100 RPMs and they're tight together, they better be balanced and true to the bearing surface. Because if they're not, again, bad things happen.
Yeah. You have these conditioners that are designed to run together. The science behind this, and stop me if I say something silly, whether we're harvesting grass or alfalfa or really any plant, that stem has moisture inside. And in the industry, we talk about stem moisture and dew moisture, and those are two very different things. But you have to get rid of that stem moisture for the plant to be really actually dry.
Correct.
The trouble is if you don't condition, and when we're talking about conditioning, we're talking about smashing the stem and breaking the sides of that stem. I always try to explain it like spitting into a straw and then expecting it to dry. Whereas if you take a hammer and you smash that straw and crack the sides, it's likely to dry a lot faster. So that's the world that we're living in here, is trying to smash those stems as much as possible.
Yeah, correct. Like my sales Mike says, he goes, Danny, he goes, I tell people, I've heard him say this 1,000 times. He goes, just imagine, just take your grandma's rolling pin and put that stem or straw on the counter, and you just roll over it. What is it going to do? It's going to bust out on both sides. I think that's a great analogy. And then the old wringer washing machine thing. You put that through there. It's the same exact concept. There is really, literally nothing different than that concept. Yeah, because really what we want to do is have that stem break open from top to bottom along the sides. That's going to do a couple of things. It's definitely going to stop. We want it to aspirate. So what it's going to break it open so it has a chance to emit all that moisture. It's got to go someplace. But if you crimp it every even 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 inches, what's in the middle? If it doesn't get touched, how is that going to dry faster and evenly with anything else? So you really got a leg up by using high contact rollers. I think that's the biggest key to our success for sure, is that concept. And when you break that stem open from top to bottom, number one, it makes it dry faster. Number two, it makes it so soft. It's unbelievable. People, they just go, I can't even believe how soft this hay is. It's just crazy.
The texture of hay is one of the valuable components, right? So as we're thinking about that dry down, we're thinking about, there's a lot of value components here. If you smash that stem and get it to dry down faster, Well, there's less risk of getting hay rained on.
Absolutely.
And there's no magic number here, I'm sure, that says that you're going to gain a day in dry down or you're going to gain 2 days in dry down. That number doesn't exist, but it will dry faster.
It will dry faster. And you know what we always say too, because we get that question 1,000 times. And we always say, we always ask, well, what's your dry down right now? What is your average dry down right now? So we start with that question. So if it's 3 days or 4 days or whatever it ends up being, we go, it could be a half a day. It could be a full day. It could be in a beautiful world the next day. You could bail. We've heard that several times, but it's absolutely perfect stuff. Doesn't happen often, but it has happened. But, and again, the whole key is compressing that stem from top to bottom. Anybody can dry a leaf, but you got to dry that stem.
Yep. It's the stem that's the trouble. And especially in the alfalfa world, where the leaf dries so much faster than the stem. And I'm on the West Coast, and not everybody. I saw recently on the Hay Kings Facebook group that somebody put lights on their nodder. You just know that they're from the West Coast because there's not very many areas in the country that they bale at night. And somebody from Florida commented, "Marked safe from baling hay at night," and I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah. It's great. Yeah.
But that's part of the story too, is in the West, we spend a lot of time cutting hay during the day. So you get all the sugars up into the plant, and then the leaves dry first, and then we wait and wait and wait for the stems to dry. And finally, by the time the stems are dry, the leaves are so brittle that we have to wait for the dew to come back in to rehydrate the leaves so we don't lose all the leaves in the baling process.
Right.
And anything that we can do to match that dry down or get that dry down time between the stem and the leaf closer to be the same is super valuable.
And that's our thinking too. And we've just proven that for years and years, because we talk to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of farmers all the time. Again, this whole education piece. We have been educated by our customer farmers ever since we started. And we have learned so much, and we listen, because being the manufacturer is one of the advantages, because we can change stuff. If something is wrong, we can fix it or try something different, instead of doing the same thing over and over and over and expect a different result. And that's craziness.
Right.
Try something different, and listen. That's the key, is just listening to the customer, and they've been there, done that. And so we've learned so much about that. But yeah, leaf shatter and all the stuff that you lose. And one of the cool things about we've learned over the years too, is that you can actually take an extra step out of the process, which is tedding. A lot of people go, "What? We don't need to ted?" I'm going, yeah. You try it once. Just keep an eye on the field before you get too excited thinking you need to ted. Give it a little bit more time, or give it an extra half a day. And depending on, because every time you touch that plant, what happens? A leaf goes, the top goes.
There is dry matter loss. Absolutely.
Dry matter goes away. So you don't want that to happen. So the less you can touch that hay, the better. If you can go in there, cut it, let it dry, rake it, merge it, bale it, boom, bang, you're done. It's like, that's the perfect world. That definitely has happened to a lot of people, even with inoculants and acids too. Some people go, we haven't even had to do that just because of it's dried faster. We haven't had to do that. Sometimes we would get a little nervous and see a storm cloud or something, or look at the radar and go, we better do that or whatever, just to get it, just to be sure. And that's, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in your field. You don't want that to go bad. So anything you can do, not saying don't do any of that, but there's some things you can look at that you can possibly skip, saving on diesel, man hours, just time and money. It's just huge. Being a smaller operator and stuff like that, that's a major thing. Even if you're a large operator, just got that much more stuff.
It really does matter.
Let's take a break there, and we'll get a word from our sponsor.
Looking to get more from your alfalfa seed? Plant cropland. Achieve your alfalfa production goals with a well-crafted plan. The new AA series varieties from Cropland provide significant improvement in overall plant health, improving yield, quality, and persistence. Find the new AA Series variety that works for you, available in conventional Roundup Ready or reduced lignin Harvextra trait platforms. Cropland has the right fit for your need. For insights and more information that will work for you, go to www.cropland.com.
This is one of those things that matters to everybody. There's folks that don't realize it, but one of my favorite things about your product is it's aftermarket, and you have it for all of the swathers. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say. Yeah, we're one of the largest, well, not one, we are the largest, I'm not trying to boast, but we've got the largest inventory of aftermarket rollers. I don't talk to overseas people much, but we do a lot of stuff in Australia and in Europe a little bit, but in the world, really, because nobody has the inventory of different roles than we do. We've got, you call us up, 9 times out of 10, we have either inventory or, in process, those rollers to fit directly into your machine. So, that's a big thing. It's a direct aftermarket drop-in product. You don't have to modify nothing. And that's really another big key.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
don't have to cut, paste, chop, anything. So it's you've got factory bearings. We also sell bearings and stuff for the major brands that we sell.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, we just started doing that. And that's, the New Holland, the Deere, and the AGCO basically are the ones that we carry because that's what we sell the most of as far as that goes. The Chrono rollers and stuff, we do a lot of that, but those come with interchangeable not interchangeable, but detachable ends and stuff. And we have a lot of those on hand too. We sell quite a bit of those. Yeah, it's again a direct aftermarket drop-in product. And I don't believe anybody can really say that. So it's taken a lot of work. We've done a ton of reverse engineering. We've actually improved upon some of the steel cores that have been made out there. And being with what I said before, using that 1/4-inch DOM tubing. So you're starting with a round tube rather than an egg-shaped electric weld tubing that's 3/16 or 200 thousandths thick. That's oblong. You're not going to get a perfect roller. Not that DOM is perfect, but it's the most perfect you can get in steel tubing without paying an arm and leg for something else. It's just a quality product. It's all made in the USA, which is great. Go USA. Go America. A lot of research and stuff. And again, education from the farmers to us and just listening to what has gone wrong so we could improve upon it. Yeah, that's what's really nice. When you call up, we can just hopefully just send your roller right out the door.
Here's where we do the full disclosure part. You did send me a set of rollers. Actually, as soon as we're done with this podcast recording, I'm going to go pick them up.
Are you excited?
I'm really excited. Because
it's like Christmas.
Because the part that you might not appreciate is how bad my conditioners are right now. I have steel on steel conditioners currently. There's a couple of dings and dents in there, and I've gone in with a grinder and kind of knocked out some of the damage that prevents those conditioners from from intermeshing properly without hitting. There's enough damage that I have to run them with maybe a little bit bigger gap than what is ideal. And I already know that I'm not getting a good crimp on the hay. I already know it's a problem, and it's one of the reasons that I'm particularly excited about this, because I know conditioning is one of my weak spots. And I imagine that there's lots of producers out there that have terrible, terrible worn out conditioners, and they don't even know it. And they're not setting their gaps, and they're not checking, right? In my mind, the greatest value comes from going from something worn out to something that's exceptionally well designed for the purpose. That's a much bigger leap than going from something factory new to something that's specifically to your product that's specifically designed for the purpose.
Yeah, I totally agree with that because it's just something so new. Mm-hmm. I mean, as far as the concept, it kind of blows your mind. You're just going, well, but we're supposed to gap them. No, don't gap the rollers. And again, they're made to run together, where factory rollers are not made to run together. Even though they're balanced, they're not true enough in how they make the rollers to be almost perfect.
Right. Right.
And it's just, back to that real quickly, that digestibility and flattening that stem and stuff. Can you imagine having a flattened, soft, nice stem versus a crimped, pointy, broken thing? Well, which one would you rather eat?
Yeah.
And that way the horses, the cows and sheep, they don't get sore mouth, they eat everything. And that's really the ticket. And then as far as digestibility, when it goes into that stomach, however many you have, in whatever animal, it's going to digest a heck of a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to get sick. They're going to eat everything. They're not going to pick and choose. They're going to eat it all.
Right.
So, and we've heard that several hundred times. That's just really a huge benefit. And especially when you're selling hay too, you can boast that. That means you can ask more for your hay. Which is what we all want to do.
That's one of the things that started me down this road. Is I actually bought a load of 3-tie out of Ellensburg, and they were running your conditioners, and the difference between the flat crushed first cutting alfalfa. So this was first cutting alfalfa that I got in, and those stems were flat. I mean, they were like two pieces of paper laying against one another. Mm-hmm. Flat, all the way the full length of the stem. And that just blew my mind, because I understand the implications to dry down. And again, there's no magic number here as to how much faster it's going to dry. But definitely that having that stem crushed the whole length is faster. And it was a softer product.
It's interesting, depending on where you're at in the country, I don't know if they don't need that or they don't know about it because they've never had it and felt the difference. I was talking to a gentleman the other day, and they go, "Yeah, I've never really felt that before." I said, "Just wait till you get the rollers. You're gonna kind of freak out because you're going, wow, how does this even happen?" Well, it's because that stem is crushed. It just makes that plant dry so much faster. So you get it out of there. No, not as much bleaching, if any. And it just gives you a leg up against Mother Nature. Hands down. If there's anything you can do to do that, to have that happen, a farmer should look into it. To me, I think that's really the biggest thing. It's just the change of what you feel and the feedability and so on and so forth. It's a simple question. If you go up to a farmer and ask them, what is the most important part of your conditioning machine? Just kind of let them think for a little bit. And I don't think I've ever had anybody say the rollers, which is so strange to me, because that's the ticket. If your rollers aren't conditioning properly, I don't care if you've got a new tire, an ergonomically great chair, or sharp blades or whatever.
Oh, I mean, sharp blades are pretty important. But
that is very true. That is extremely true. We've got a great relationship now with we're partners with Case New Holland, and we're going to be putting in rollers into their new machines or self-propelled machines. Will be you'll have a choice, so you can do Chevron or the high contact crusher B&D rolls. So if you want to order a new machine or parts through your dealership, you can call them. For new machines, we'll be sending rollers down to Grand Island for the self-propelleds here coming this year and next year, and starting a great relationship with them. And they're wonderful to work with. So that's been really, really cool for us. And like I said at the beginning of the story, that was kind of our hope. We still will be able to sell to our direct farmer, to dealerships in all different brands. So we have a very unique relationship with them, which usually does not happen.
I love the concept of a little bit more metal and options for repairs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Music to my ears.
Yeah. So we're really excited to bring those guys on and work together. And they were just up at the shop here recently and had a great talk. So we're working out some things, but we're going to be prototyping new stuff here this year and starting to manufacture that stuff.
Oh, so that's exciting.
Give us a call. Yeah, we're jacked up about that too. So just another option.
Dan, this has been a great conversation. I've learned a lot.
Great. That's what we want. Again, I've been pushing education, because we all can learn. None of us are too old to learn. I don't care what anybody says.
Yep. And I want to say thank you to Nick Palmieri at Palmieri Sound for editing these episodes, Jessica Palmieri for doing our social media marketing and distribution. Thank you to all of our various sponsors for the podcast helping to make this happen.